What actually killed the Roman Empire? Not one single enemy, not one dramatic battle, and not, despite what movies suggest, a sudden collapse in one night. The truth is more unsettling. Rome fell the way a giant machine falls apart, piece by piece, until the damage was too deep to ignore. And here's the strange part. For centuries, Rome looked unstoppable. It conquered armies, built roads across continents, and ruled lands from Britain to North Africa. So how did the most powerful empire in the Western world begin to crack from the inside? That is the real mystery. And the answer is far bigger than invasion alone. To understand the fall, we have to understand what Rome had become. At its peak, the empire stretched across an enormous world. Millions of people lived under Roman rule. Cities were connected by trade, taxes, armies, and laws. For a long time, this system worked because Rome was strong enough to keep order. But over time, the very size of the empire became a weakness. How do you govern such a huge territory when threats keep appearing everywhere at once? The first warning signs were political. The Roman Empire became known for unstable leadership. Emperors rose and fell quickly. Some were murdered. Others were replaced by rivals. In many periods, the army decided who ruled more than the Senate did. Imagine an empire where power changes hands so often that no one knows who will be in charge next month. That kind of chaos destroys trust. It also makes every crisis worse. And crises came fast. Border wars never stopped. Rome faced pressure from different groups along its frontiers, including Goths, Vandals, Huns, and others. But these were not just simple stories of savage outsiders destroying a peaceful empire. Many of these groups were pushed by fear, hunger, and the movement of other peoples. Some were allowed into Roman lands. Some were fought. Some were absorbed. The picture is complicated, and that is exactly why Rome's story is so fascinating. Then came the economy. This is where the empire began to weaken in ways many people never think about. Rome depended on taxes, farming, trade, and a huge flow of wealth into the cities and army. But war was expensive. So was instability. So was running an empire that large. Over time, the government struggled to pay soldiers and officials. Coins were weakened. Inflation rose in some periods. Trade became less reliable. When money loses its value and the state cannot pay its own defenders, trouble is only a matter of time. But even that was not the whole story. Rome also suffered from internal division. In the late empire, the vast territory was increasingly hard to manage as one unit. The empire was split between eastern and western parts for administration. That helped in some ways, but it also showed a deeper truth. The western half was under far more strain. The east was richer, more urban, and better able to recover. The West had fewer resources and more military pressure. The split did not cause the fall by itself, but it revealed how uneven the empire had become. Now here comes one of the most important questions. If Rome was under so much pressure, why did it last so long? Because it was resilient. That is the part people forget. Rome did not vanish in a single collapse. It adapted, reformed, and survived repeated disasters. Emperors tried to rebuild the system. Armies were reorganized. Borders were defended. The empire kept going even when it looked exhausted. But eventually, the western half could not keep up. One of the most famous moments often linked to Rome's fall is the sack of Rome in 410 CE by the Visigoths. That shocked the ancient world. The city of Rome had once seemed untouchable. Then, years later, more invasions, more losses, and more weak rulers followed. By 476 CE, the last Western emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was removed from power. This date is usually treated as the fall of the Western Roman Empire. But even that is not the full ending. Roman culture, law, and identity continued in many forms long after. So what really caused the collapse? Historians usually point to a combination of factors: political instability, economic strain, military pressure, corruption and weak leadership in some periods, overextension, and the loss of confidence in the central government. Each problem made the others worse. When an empire is rich, stable, and feared, it can survive shocks. But when it is already tired, every shock becomes dangerous. There is also a deeper theory many historians stress. Rome did not simply get destroyed. It transformed. In the West, imperial power faded and was replaced by new kingdoms. In the East, the Roman Empire continued for centuries as the Byzantine Empire. In other words, Rome's fall was not a clean ending. It was a long transition. And that may be the biggest revelation of all. The Roman Empire did not collapse because it was weak from the start. It collapsed because it was powerful for so long that its systems became harder and harder to maintain. The empire was not brought down by one event. It was worn down by many. Leaders failed. The economy strained. Armies were stretched. Borders broke under pressure. And once the balance was lost, the Western Empire could no longer hold itself together. That is why the fall of Rome still matters today. It shows how even the greatest power in history can struggle when its institutions stop working, when trust breaks down, and when too many crises hit at once. Rome fell slowly, then suddenly, and that is what makes its story so unforgettable.